Good morning and welcome back to United TV. Hope everybody's good. We're going to do a shorter version of the news this morning, and we're going to be looking at some of the stories which broke last night. Lots on Tonali, but one thing I wanted to discuss before we go into that is it looks like Casemiro is actually not going to play for Manchester United ever again. I know he's going to leave in the summer, but he's not going to play against Brighton. So that's an update that I didn't know until I read that just about 5 minutes ago. But also, there's serious negotiations now. It looks like he's already decided he's going to join Bex in Miami. And I think for some reason I knew that a few weeks ago. So there must have been some leak information somewhere. But Casemiro is going to go and play for Miami, but he's not going to be available for the Brighton game. I think we might be seeing, probably, we'll do a preview on Friday, but I think we're going to be seeing a lot of academy players. Maybe we're going to see a change for that game. So it might be a bit like we've seen in previous seasons. It might be youth players getting a chance in that one. But back to the main story, and this is on Tonali. It's probably if you're looking at Tonali, it's the story seemed to disappear for a while, but it's emerged tonight. There's quite a lot from Alex Crook talking about this one, and some of the factors in this one are going to be, if you remember January, when it looked like Tonali's agents were pretty much trying to push him towards Arsenal. Well, apparently Tonali has wanted to leave Newcastle since January, and it looks like his agent's working overtime trying to get him out of the club. So, with that in mind, it might explain why every sort of week or so there is a link between Manchester United and Tonali. I think from Manchester United's point of view, he is on the list and he is under consideration. There's obviously a lot of people on that list, and there's a lot of factors. But in terms of like the situation regarding United, the positive is I don't know if this is true, but it was said by um, someone on a big Manchester United channel that he's handed in a transfer request. So I'm not sure if that is 100% true, but it looks like Tonali is pretty much close to trying to not necessarily force his way out, but he has made it known that he wants to leave Newcastle. And if you remember, Eddie Howe was, I think he was speaking a couple of weeks ago, and the information from Newcastle is if you're not part of the club, if you want to leave the club, you will be allowed to do so. So we know that Man United had talks with Newcastle probably a couple of weeks ago now, and the price they were quoted was about £80 million for Tonali. So I don't know if it's going to cost exactly that much, but in terms of like comparisons, overall wage package, transfer fee, that would probably put Tonali a bit cheaper than Anderson. It would probably make him cheaper than Tchouaméni if you consider the sort of salary demand that Tchouaméni's on as well. So potentially in terms of three big targets Man United are looking at, Tonali could end up being slightly cheaper, although part of me thinks if, as a club, if you feel that Elliot Anderson really fits what you want from a midfield player, then I'm assuming is also I'm making the assumption that Manchester United will not spend enough on midfield on two players to get Tonali plus Anderson. So if I'm like thinking you're going to choose one of these players, I would say edge towards Anderson. If you think he gives you everything you need and it's going to be your number one target, I would go for Anderson. But we don't 100% know exactly where Anderson's going to go. There's still a lot of links between Anderson and Manchester City, and that's up to Manchester United to try and convince Anderson that United is the club for him. But it seems that if Manchester United did want to go for Tonali, at the moment, I don't really see lots of I don't see a lot of news with other clubs pushing towards like trying to get Tonali. So I'm not saying that Man United would have a clear path, but it would suggest that it's been said that he would like to go back to Italy, but there's no Italian clubs that are going to be close to meeting the valuation that Newcastle want. It would feel a little bit like I don't know if Arsenal are actually seriously interested in Tonali, but if they were interested, considering they've just won the Premier League title, they would be like a serious contender. I think based on like Man United's demands for midfield, surely they're going to make a decision fairly quickly on making an offer for one of these players and just finding out where they stand. I think at the moment also Tonali and also Matheus Fernandes and Baliba, we got a few big targets that are actually not going to the World Cup. So Man United could potentially try and do one of these deals quite quickly. I'm hoping they do try and do something quite quickly, but my favorite, no, my preference and my favorite transfer to get done would be Anderson, but I think my kind of like hope is that Manchester United actually make an offer quite quickly, and then we find out where we lie. But if you're watching the video, leave a comment about what you would do in this situation. Would you make an offer for Anderson, go for Tonali? Would you try and get both of them? If United did try and get both of them, you would probably be looking at only signing two midfielders, and then you would look at Thwaites and say, right, is he going to be ready for the first team? It does seem that in terms of like prospects in the academy, they are talking up Thwaites quite a lot. Which the only thing I can think of is when we got Aiden Heaven from Arsenal, and there was a lot of conversations and a lot of articles I read that said, and no, he's going to be close to the first team. Like Aiden Heaven is a lot more progressed than someone like Chidobe when we signed them from Arsenal, and so I'm wondering whether they think Thwaites could be getting close to like starting to contribute to first team football next season. Would it be that maybe Tonali or Anderson, if we sign both of them, or if we got too many plus Anderson or too many plus Tonali, would we effectively have the first team kind of locked down? That it would be very difficult to get it. So if we got a third midfielder, how many games would they get? How many starts would they get? Don't forget there's Kobe Manu as well. So maybe an academy player would make up a fourth option, although it's not what I like to see normally. Normally, I'd rather see Manchester United. Suppose in a way that maybe it would work. I suppose if the academy player didn't play that many games and did come on in parts of games, but it all depends on how close the coaches feel someone like Thwaites is to actually first team football. So we could, if we see a situation and he adapts to first team football the same way that Kobe Manu did, and I think that's kind of what they are thinking. Maybe it actually works out better than we think. I have said for quite a long time, and I've been quite consistent on this. I think Manchester United needs to sign three midfielders, but if someone like Thwaites can come in and effectively be a better option than Toby Collier, then maybe you're replacing Nagata, you're replacing Casemiro, and then Thwaites is replacing Collier. But I think at this moment in time, it feels like you pick one or the other. But we'll have to see. Maybe next season we'll be able to have a discussion after we see Thwaites play if he does play. But there was an article about 10 days ago now, maybe 2 weeks ago, that did suggest that Thwaites would be like considered part of the first team setup next season. Just a couple of other things I've seen before we finish this video as well is apparently Mourinho does want to, he's identified Diogo Dalot, of all people, as a target. And apparently Manchester United's valuation is not that much actually, so 30 million euros. I think there is potentially Man United are interested in a couple of options. I did read actually somewhere that United would consider going for someone like Ryerson as a right back, but they would be looking at replacing Mazraoui. So I don't think this is something Manchester United will want to do. Regarding Dalot, there was a breaking story last night that Manchester United actually might be offering him a new contract. So maybe this is going to be a situation where United want to keep him, and if they do want to sell him, they'd want more than 30 million euros. So that's not a lot of money. That's basically what slightly cheaper than Rashford's going to go for. So yeah, United. I don't know to be honest, I don't really know what the best situation is. Like, if they're going to be buying a quality right back in, I don't really mind a right back moving on. I think ultimately we want to upgrade as many positions as possible. If we did upgrade Dallo, then and there is an opportunity to do that, then we should go for it. But at this point in time, I think there's a lot of other things to sort out in the team first. One thing that Fabrizio put out as well, I want to very quickly cover because I don't think Fabrizio is really offering any extra information in this story. I think he's talking about Marcus Rashford. He says the deal's still on. It's progressing slowly. I haven't watched his video, but you can kind of imagine the way Fabrizio videos go. I'm sure it's a very important deal for Barcelona to progress with. Marcus Rashford's probably made a significant reduction in his salary, but he will still get a lot of money because of the different tax system in Spain. And Manchester United are still insistent on the release clause, which was agreed a year ago. They're insistent that that should be honoured and it should be 30 million euros. Barcelona are trying to find a cheaper solution. Is pretty much the take-home message here. But Barcelona are effectively wasting Manchester United's time. I think they eventually they're just going to pay it. and any sort of compromise on financial aspects of the deal will be met by Marcus Rashford himself. I don't think we're going to see Man United compromise too much on that one. So that's something which I think is just going to be discussed about for a bit longer. But I'd probably ignore any Rashford story. I have seen like Hansi Flick say that he wants Rashford done. So I think the manager wants the deal done. The club are just for some reason just delaying things. It's a little bit annoying. But and hopefully, just to go back to Tonali as well, I think with this one, I think Manchester United also need to make sure that they do their due diligence with Tonali. I know there's been like some betting scandals, and apparently there's like some things in like Milan as well, which I think they might be factoring in. So for me, it feels a little bit like this is not Manchester United's top choice, and I'm still of the mindset that I think it would be the only reason I can see Tonali being signed is if too many stays and Anderson does not go to Manchester United, he goes to Man City. I think that Tonali, in my opinion, at the moment, I think he's third choice in terms of the more expensive signings, and it would be that Manchester United would get him if they couldn't get their other targets. I think he'd still be a decent player, but I think when you look at the sort of numbers, then he doesn't put up the sort of numbers that Anderson does in terms of defensive work or attacking work. He's nowhere near as good as too many on the defensive side of the game. And actually, Carlos Balíba's quite a lot better in duels and defensive winning the ball back as well. So I think he'd be an okay signing, but I think for me, when you start looking into Tonali as a signing, then I'm not sure he's worth the sort of price that Newcastle want to pay. But I'm happy to be proved wrong, and if he did sign for Manchester United, I'd be interested to see how it works. But thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the quick update, just please leave a comment on the video, and we might try and do more of these. But in the future, we will be trying to do a bit more varied sort of information for people that don't want to sit down for a 1 hour stream and just want to catch up on the news. But thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing to United TV if you have done. And we will catch you in the next live 1 p.m. today.